and so that we can keep track of what types of topics that we talk with you all, and make sure that we circle back on those topics. So moving forward, this section will be kind of like a follow-up section. So topics that we've talked about before in the past that you all request a follow-up on, we'll be sure to bring those topics back to you. So with that being said, since we do not have a new City Council liaison tonight, we will move forward with item B, which is the Colorado 66 and Alpine Street traffic calming, which is the traffic engineering update.
Kyle Howarth, traffic engineering administrator, public works. Last meeting we had a citizen voice some concerns about Alpine Street from 21st Avenue to Highway 66, as well as questions about a possible traffic signal at 66 and Alpine. Staff was in the process of conducting a warrant analysis for that area. At this time, the signal does not meet warrants for construction of a traffic signal because it's a highway, state highway. It has to meet traffic signal warrants for CDOT to even consider the possibility of installation. So it'll still be on our list for evaluation, and as the area grows and changes, we'll be monitoring that intersection and find out when it finally meets warrants. As well as we did measure the speeds in that area between 66 and Winding Drive. Both those areas did not meet criteria for additional traffic calming measures under our current program. So at this time, it will be on our list to keep an eye on during Vision Zero, but this time there'll be no further action.
Do you know what the average speed was when you collected it?
So we take a couple metrics. We don't typically use average speed as much because it isn't as indicative of showing actual speeds. We generally use the 85th percentile. For one section, Alpine at Lily Court was 31.1 miles per hour, which the speed limit is 30. So that's really close to what we want to see most drivers going. And then at Alpine and North Winding, the speeds were a little bit higher at 34.2 miles per hour for the 85th percentile. But coming to that section is where you hit the existing traffic calming measures. So for a large portion of that traffic coming that way, they're going to be hitting those traffic calming measures, which helps them do slow down.
Great, thank you.
Kyle, one question about that. With the new the neighborhood traffic mitigation program that we're thinking of revising next year, would that also help maybe speed some methodology around? Because, you know, warrants are one thing, you know, just like we saw stop signs weren't warranted at Central Elementary, but now we have some on Bross. So sometimes it's just, we have to do something.
Yeah, so as we're evaluating a new program, which we should be coming with some updates here in 2026, one thing we do look at is kind of the top level speeds, and as we're looking at this new program of how many speeders are actually going through the streets, we go up to the 95th percentile, which both of them are about within at or under 5 miles per hour of the speed limit. So at that point, it's more of a policy decision, which is why during the Vision Zero action plan, we're going to bring a lot more community members together and decide of what kind of program this should be, whether community driven, stat driven, or a little combination of both. Part of that is if we did want to do additional traffic calming measures, it would probably be community based, and we need a large portion of the community to buy into wanting traffic calming measures. And so that would be kind of the tipping point of if people want to have, you know, speed bumps, additional radars, more traffic calming bump outs, stuff like that.
I would say a traffic calming method could also be a crossing island, because I think sometimes we focus on the vehicles a lot more than people in that neighborhood trying to just cross the road. So
Yep. And that's something we want to focus on. The Vision Zero action plan is overall routes, and part of, we're going to have more RFRB crossings, protected crossings, and a lot more of that's going to be community driven as well.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Chair Kalkoffer, tab members. Jim Angstad, Director of Engineering Services. My item this evening is Boston Avenue maintenance, a follow-up. We have continued to work on keeping the area along Boston swept. It's a little more challenging with the snow and the weather we're having, because it's drawn a lot more dirt onto the road or mud onto the road. So we are working with our water quality staff to see if we, as we approach some of the businesses in the area, to see if they can do some improvements on their sites to keep some of that dust and dirt down. But it is an ongoing thing, and we'll continue to sweep the road on a regular basis and try to keep it clean.
And then we had another resident concern come to the board about downtown construction trucks in the historic East Side neighborhood. It's a situation we're evaluating and kind of monitoring to see what trucks are coming through. Some of the trucks that do come through are local deliveries, such as like Home Depot trucks, logistics companies that they're box trucks. Since they are a local delivery, they are allowed to be in those areas that aren't, quote, truck routes. But as far as large semis that are in freight coming off of the approved truck routes, such as 287, 3rd Avenue, we have not quite seen the level of concern for those areas. But it's an area we'll keep on looking at as we move throughout the year.
Can I make a clarification?
During public invited to be heard.
Okay.
One of the questions that I heard this week from another resident was 66. I believe it's also Francis is becoming where a lot of trucks are coming through. How do we enforce or have signage to indicate where trucks can and can't go to cut through to town? Because, of course, if there's a local delivery, we have to have these trucks in those neighborhoods. But if they're cutting through from 66 to get to 21st or, let's say somewhere downtown, how do we enforce that or prevent that?
The city does have a posted truck route that's approved, and through the trucking and computer-aided dispatches, they do have routes that use that routing information. So if we do get issues, we do have existing signage in those areas. I believe I'll check on Francis south of 66 to make sure that signage is in place. But as we do get complaints or concerns that maybe trucks that aren't supposed to be there are driving through, we generally ask to see if we can get a description or a DOT number of the truck and work with our law enforcement to see if we can at least make contact and see what's the reasoning behind their being in there so we can determine if it is a legal presence or not.
Chair Kalkofer, circling back to the trucks on 3rd off of and in the historic area, as part of the Longmont Hotel project, staff had reduced one of the lanes on 3rd between Kimbark and the alley, and forced all traffic in the westbound outside lane to turn up Kimbark. As the hotel nears completion and they complete their work on 3rd Avenue, currently they're starting to form up for the sidewalk. As that work gets completed and they no longer need that area, those barricades will be pulled, and that kind of shift or traffic turn will be removed, and it will go back to the original condition. Hoping that, a lot of trucks who originally went down to Main Street maybe did not want to make that turn, so this will get them back to the original configuration of the road, and we're hoping that it'll take some of the trucks out of that historic neighborhood. Current schedule is sometime early next year for the hotel, at least to be completed in that area. But we are tracking it and moving them, trying to get them to move along as fast as possible.
Hello, board members. Cami Etzen, Transportation Planning Manager. I've got the next 2 staff updates to close out the section for you. The first one, wanted to follow up on Hover Street and Colorado 119. A few months ago, I believe Alex Donaldson, another engineer from City of Longmont, came and spoke to you about that project. So the update I want to give you tonight is next week at City Council, there's going to be the formal presentation to council and the community about that project, if you would like to attend or watch. And following that, there'll be kind of the opening of the community engagement process to give kind of final opportunity to give feedback on that plan. And that will be open for about a month. So just wanted to make sure that was on your radar. We can make sure to share the formal presentation after the city council meeting with you all in the event you can't attend next week, but just wanted to make sure you were invited and welcome, and to know that additional community engagement's coming on that specific project.
Do we have a estimated start date for this project? Because it's been talked about for a couple years now.
Yeah, so good question. The getting to sort of the pre-construction phase where they're working on easements and giving themselves space to be able to do the project is starting in the spring. So February, March-ish, if I remember correctly. I believe it's maybe March at this point. So they want to round out or kind of close out community feedback in January, so they have time to react to that and get those kind of comments factored into the final design. And another thing I wanted to say is that feedback that you all gave on the design a few months ago, staff was able to carry that forward, and they have incorporated many of the suggestions that you brought forward. So I think you'll be able to see that and then be able to give further feedback again one more time in this final community engagement opportunity. There'll be a place on CDOT's webpage as well as on City of Longmont's place to do that, where we're asking slightly different elements based on what was each kind of agency's priorities. So there'll be a number of places people can give feedback, but hopefully they'll be both linked on each other's pages, so it shouldn't be hard for the community to find the right place to leave the feedback they want to leave.
Okay, and then couple more is because this is a big intersection, it's going to cause, some stressors for a lot of people. What's the time frame of completion?
Yeah, so they'll have all of those specific details for sure next week, but I know the
Okay.
idea is that they need to have the whole intersection done. At the same time, we want to open the bus rapid transit lane, so basically by the end of 2027.
Okay. And then can we also get maybe a email or something about the design before it goes to council next week?
I will certainly ask and see if they have that ready to share, if they're
Okay.
not going to have it ready until the moment of. So I will find
All right,
out for you.
because
But
I'm
yeah,
curi- I'm
but
curious-
if possible, we'll definitely share
I'm
it
curious
in advance.
what things we said of and how it's changed.
Yeah,
So thank you.
understandable. Yeah, so I'll definitely find out and let you know. Okay, and then the last staff update is just also circling back around to the linking Boulder County Transit Plan. That is also, I think, why board member Gina McKee-Burrows, as she's participating as one of the advisory members on that group. They are slated to come and give a formal update in February. So we just wanted to let you know that you'll see that on the 2026 work plan, is that you will get a formal update from the consultant team and Boulder County in February on this plan. And we're also trying to get them connected to the Longmont Youth Advisory Board to also be able to give input on this plan, since youth are obviously a key group that we want to make sure ridership and options work for them. And we know they have a lot to say about what isn't necessarily working for them at this point. So if you have other suggestions of who Boulder County should be reaching out to in the area, let me know, but they're definitely trying to make their rounds, and they will have a summary of who they've already reached out to in Longmont when they present in February, but happy to pass on any suggestions you all have. And I think that rounds out staff updates unless you have any additional questions.
Great,
Yep.
thank you. Alrighty, now we open the floor to public comment. If you'd like to speak, I'll call your name. If your name's not on the list, you can do so at the end. Please state your name and your address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes. Can't figure out the clock, so Scout's honor that you stay to 3 minutes, please. Okay, first on the list is Shaquille.
Shaquille Dalal, 219 Francis Street. Members of the Transportation Board, for the past 5 years, I've served on the Professional Standards Unit within the City of Longmont Public Safety Department. Unlike TAB, the Professional Standards Unit is not an official city board. It's because we're appointed by the city manager, Harold Dominguez, instead of by City Council, because we are part of the city's personnel process. While the mechanics of how we exist are different, the purpose is the same. We exist to build trust between the people of Longmont and the professionals who operate the city, in this case, specifically and typically with the police department. I'm here tonight to address item 7A on your agenda. Like Census Gatso, which provides the city's speed enforcement cameras, Flock Safety is a company which provides surveillance services to the city of Longmont. What's different about Flock is what they do with the data. Census Gatso's cameras provide a specific function: measuring speed and issuing tickets in support of our Vision Zero goals. The city's speed enforcement cameras are highly visible because the purpose of them is to slow people down, not to issue tickets. The cameras do not record anyone who is not speeding. Flock's cameras provide a specific and different function. Do not provide a specific function because they are different. Flock uses artificial intelligence to take pictures of every single car which passes, regardless of speed, and regardless of any reasonable suspicion or other law enforcement justification. Flock then makes that data searchable so that a police officer with a click of a few buttons can find out anytime you've been anywhere within view of their cameras if you were in your car. You may have never noticed them because they are unobtrusive by design. They are a dragnet surveillance mechanism which circumvents Fourth Amendment protections to get a warrant because Flock is not a government entity. This is a loophole in the Constitution that Flock is encouraging our city, among many others, to take advantage of. A recent CORA request to the city of Firestone revealed what Flock's training materials and instructions for users are like. They explicitly say, quote, "Reasonable suspicion or probable cause is not necessary. Officers can search all Flock cameras nationwide. It will automatically reconstruct the full travel history of a vehicle." I'm happy to provide a number of vetted, reputable sources documenting the ways in which Flock's systems have been misused and abused across the country, including in jurisdictions like Longmont, which claim not to make that data searchable or shareable to non-Longmont police officers. In fact, a recent analysis by the ACLU showed that the language in Longmont's contract with Flock allows a, quote, "non-exclusive, perpetual, irrevocable, worldwide, royalty-free license to share the data with other law enforcement agencies, including ICE, without ever asking for Longmont's permission." Even though Longmont believes that its data is only accessible to our police officers, the ACLU finds that this contract language overrides that. All of this has very little to do with transportation, so why am I here? Tomorrow, Public Safety will be making a presentation to City Council, providing an overview of the surveillance tools that Public Safety uses, including, quote, "drones and cameras." We have good reason to believe that this is a surreptitious reference to Flock. The function of the board that I have spent the past 5 years serving on is to build trust between Longmont's police and the public. Given how the Public Safety Department has in the past used language which conflates speed enforcement cameras and the Flock surveillance cameras, I believe they will do the same tomorrow. I believe that the language they're using, which conflates the two, I believe they're using this language because the Flock cameras have become divisive and have come under withering criticism for failing to protect people's rights and privacy. And so Public Safety is trying to make people think that the surveillance cameras and the speed cameras are the same. This whole episode has damaged my trust in Longmont Public Safety, and so I'm here asking you to pass a resolution. In that resolution, make it clear that while the Transportation Board may or may not support speed enforcement cameras to enhance traffic safety, you do not believe that the Flock cameras should be confused with the speed enforcement cameras, and that your support for speed enforcement should not be confused with support for dragnet surveillance tools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, Mark. And then when time's up, I'll put my microphone on just so you can see that time's up. So if you can try to wrap it up when you see the mic turn on, that'd be great.
What's up? My name is Mark Wood, and I'm a new resident of Longmont. Been here since August. I've been in Colorado for 38 years, mostly in Boulder. However, I've been through Longmont in 1980 when he had one stop sign. I traveled through Colorado. I'm an avid cyclist. I ride 1,500 miles a year between bikes and e-bikes. I've ridden across Colorado twice. I've done 4 tours of the moon rides. And I became an avid e-biker due to injuries that I've recently had. So I've really learned e-biking as a user from out of necessity. Now, you can read on my website that I started out hating e-bikes, and I'm such a traditionalist cyclist that they would ride by me and I would mumble some not kind things. I didn't think it was fair. And then I learned that not all people are using e-bikes to cheat. Some of them are needing to get back into cycling, and that's the best way. So for me, it was a really good way. But it opened my eyes to e-biking and cycling. And, I've ridden lots of miles around Longmont, Boulder, Denver, and I know, the cycling community very well. A little bit about my background, and I'll get into. I'm going to make 2 recommendations tonight and give you some feedback on the plan that you've developed. I've been working on this since mid-2023. I'm involved with commuting solutions, where I met Cammie and Phil Greenwald, and Phil's very familiar with the sign program that I've come up with. Been actively involved with Community Cycles as a volunteer, a member, and a part-time marketing contractor. I'm involved with the Boulder Chamber Transportation Connection, Bicycle Colorado invited me to be a stakeholder in their pedestrian bicycle advisory board. I'm a member of People for Bikes. I have a connection with all the e-bike retailers in the county as a result of a survey that I coordinated for community cycles. I've also sold a hell of a lot of advertising and sponsorship, and it's something that I want to plant the seed with the board to do in terms of alternative funding to support some of the things I'm talking about. So my feedback on the overall transportation plan is good. It's very succinct. I think it covers all the bases and it lays a really good foundation. It doesn't necessarily provide execution, and I understand that the Vision Zero action plan is more of that, and I want to offer to help out on that. I've been involved in feedback and planning for the new bike highway on the Diagonal that's going to change e-biking and transportation in this county. I haven't really read the Vision Zero plan, but this is just my comments. And I have a special focus on connecting the St. Vrain Greenway Trail because I use it quite a bit, and I'm really bummed that it's not connected all the way. So I'm working on a program called Colorado's E-Bike Safety Awareness Initiative, and it involves basically two aspects. It's a registration and certification program for underage riders. You know, in the city of Boulder, if you want to take your dog for a walk, you have to have a license, and you go online, you take a test, and you get a license. I'm not sure why we don't do the same thing for kids who are driving a motorized vehicle 20 plus miles an hour without a helmet on an 8-foot wide bike path that was not designed for motorized traffic. So I'm essentially focusing on the e-biking, cycling, e-moto as you call it in your plan, and really trying to provide some guideline and registration. The registration would be voluntary. You can't make it mandatory without state approval, but it would be essentially get the kids to come into the schools. So I want a partnership between the kids, their parents, the schools, the police, and the city. And by doing that, I think you're going to impress upon the kids the importance of what we're doing. They come in, they get a registration, they get a sticker on their bikes or e-bikes, so register with the local police in case it gets stolen. They complete a 12-question test, online test, that proves that they know what the rules are. And essentially they get a certification that proves that they have been taught the safety rules and they're allowed to use their e-bike, and also know which are illegal e-bikes and which are not. It's being talked about a great deal at the state and national level, but essentially Class 2 e-bikes opened up the possibility for you to hack the throttle and be able to remove the governor and be able to go 30, 40 miles an hour. They're essentially e-motorcycles. And we need at least some recognition and some boundaries. Kids are seeking boundaries. We don't have any boundaries right now. And then the other aspect of my program is the second phase is an e-bike safety awareness signage. So I've developed in my rudimentary efforts I'm not sure what the camera is, but it's essentially it's called ASK. So announce when approaching from behind, signal upcoming turns, and kindness matters, 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. Each sign would have a QR code at the bottom, and that would access a new online map platform that would only be, it would be online, so it's not a PDF like you have right now that you can download. You can't even zoom in on the map right now. But this would be an online platform that would show the major streets. It would show all the paved bike paths, the dirt ones, the trails that you can't go on, all in one consolidated, easily accessible by a QR code all throughout the city. And the second is to report an incident and to grab their contact information. We don't do anything about gathering user data for what people that are using our bike paths and trails. It's all speculative stuff from meetings like this. What if on a QR code, they could report an incident, say they saw an e-biker doing something crazy, and at least document the location and the fact that it happened, and we start building a database of where these near misses are happening. So many cities base their decision on the number of crashes that are reported, and it's a misnomer. 90% of them are not reported, and they don't take the time to do it. This would facilitate reporting that, as well as gathering their email address because they want to be kept in touch. And how many times have you been able to gather a live email address for people that are using your services? And it would be all opt-in. So that's kind of my pitch. My overall goal is to ask the city of Longmont to be my first city to help develop this registration program that I plan to submit to other communities and eventually have it be a statewide program. It's happening in California. It's happening in London, Any bike that goes 15 miles an hour or weighs 45 pounds needs to be registered. You have to have a license plate on your bike. You have to wear a helmet. You have to have a light, and you have to pay attention to the rules. We're going to get there eventually. Longmont's a big city. You don't have the congestion that I'm used to in Boulder, and I've had so many incidents. But I'll bet you, how many people here?
Mark,
have
I'm gonna cut you off. It's a little bit more than 3 minutes.
I'm
If
sorry.
you can wrap it up very quickly.
So, how many people have had an incident with an e-bike, a motorized e-bike, and a kid?
Unfortunately, we can't.
You can't answer
we
that?
Can't respond. Sorry.
When I bring that up at meetings that I go to, everyone says, "Oh my God, you should have seen this." And we're basically giving these kids a credit card and go buy, do whatever the hell you want. And I want to help create some structure for myself.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sharon.
I just don't want my first comment to be a part of my count time because it's a clarification. The clarification was, I don't remember your name, sir. Jim. It wasn't construction vehicles going on to Kimbark. It was delivery. It's food, alcohol, and gasoline tankers that have been going down Emery Street. So it sounds very pleasing that you're going to get rid of the cones so the trucks can make that turn. But Jim, I'm going to give you a big surprise. They were never going on Main Street. So maybe we want to think of a plan to gear them to Main Street. Okay, now I'll start. Sharon O'Leary, 534 Emery Street, co-chair of Historic East Side Neighborhood. Do you know that Longmont's 154 years old? And our neighborhood was the oldest neighborhood. So as downtown develops, it should not impose problems into our residential neighborhood. Okay, and the west side has one more street than Longmont because they also have Terry Street. So they have 3 streets off of Main and then residential. So what I would like you to do is when the city changes and does changes like put up barriers for downtown while they build something, I would hope the Transportation Board's first questions would be, how could this potentially impact a residential neighborhood? And what do we need to find more out about this to keep people safe? Okay, so I think it's really great that you're doing, what's it called? Vision Zero. Okay, let's not talk the talk, let's walk the walk, okay? So if you're always doing that, we'll keep neighborhoods safe. So presently, because our neighborhood has always been, and before there was ever an organized neighborhood group organization from 3rd to 9th, well, the city decided to make 3rd and 9th an enterprise zone. So that has changed what's on the peripheral edge of our neighborhood. And that's one of the problems posing commercial vehicles coming into our neighborhood. So I think every time something comes up about changes that you're going to make for the enterprise zone or the type of building and you're looking at a transportation plan, I would ask that you'd be proactive and ask yourself first, Vision Zero, what can we do to keep it safe? The other thing I wanted to say is it's noticeable that there's a very proactive signage, traffic signage thing happening in the historic West Side neighborhood. And we would like similar applications, like signs that say cross street does not stop. I've also noticed that the streets have better marking. So you go along 3rd, you go by Central Elementary, there's better street marking and pedestrian crossing marking. Do you know that we have an elementary in the Historic East Side neighborhood? It's called Combine Elementary School. For years, no one thought that school needed a quiet zone. I mean, why have a quiet zone? It's a school on the east side. Okay, so let's just do things fair and equitably for children. We're doing it for the children in the neighborhoods. Adults have a right to make wiser choices. The other thing I wanted to talk about was Kimbark and the light at 9th and Kimbark. Longest light in Longmont. Longest light in Longmont. I love in the summer as I watch bicyclists cross Main Street with their bike. Well, they ride their bike across against the light because they too agree that it's the longest light. So by having that long light on Kimbark, indirectly you defer people who want to get to places very quickly onto Emery Street or onto Collier. So I would ask that AI revisits that. It would be most helpful. Let's go back. Let's join together with the neighborhood and build some roundabouts on Emery and Collier Street to slow traffic down. Enforcement's a problem. And it's not a problem that's going to be solved quickly. They're just having trouble to get the police force back up where it needs to be. And then it just winds up being a lower priority because something more drastic is happening. But we can create things. We do not want speed bumps, but we like roundabouts. Work together. Can we write a grant, take a grant? Something where we work together, we bring a neighborhood team in, we plan, and we make Collier and Emery Street safer. Going back now to Vision Zero. In 1992, a child was killed at 3rd and Bowen. And it's because the school district didn't do good planning. So at that time, kids who spoke a second language went to a magnet school, but they lived at Central Elementary School. And they never thought about what time that bus brought that child back to their neighborhood school. So a 5-year-old boy was trying to negotiate crossing 3rd and Bowen. And it was probably not his first, second, or third time, but guess what? One day he was unsuccessful at crossing that street and was killed. So the person driving the car's life was changed forever, but more importantly, the family's was. So let's use that as our model when we're looking at Vision Zero. Or then you're going to have to call it Vision 1, Vision 10, Vision 20. So I'm going to 5th and Atwood. The city is planning to close 5th Avenue off completely. When you talk to the railroad, whether it's the worker on the street or you call an executive with BNSF, it says we're only doing what the city of Longmont tells us to do. What's the price tag on a child's life? Let's think about that. That child is not going to take their bike and they want to get to the library and they're at 6th. They're going to try to cut across that railroad track sooner. Let's keep all streets open all times so that we create good, safe habits for their life. Hopefully our goal is to have them on the bikes the rest of their life. Hopefully our goal is they're choosing to walk rather than drive. Transportation should move people. It should not block people. So I would ask that you suggest they look for more money.
Sharon, we're at time if you can wrap it up.
Okay, so I'm going to just wrap it up. We need to keep all streets in our neighborhood. This city was built on a grid system. And if we really believe in Vision Zero, walk the walk, I greatly appreciate the time and dedication you give to the citizens of Longmont. Thank you for being on an advisory board.
Thank you. And last on the list, Jason. And just a reminder, when the time's up, my microphone will go red and I'll ask you to wrap it up.
Sounds good. My name is Jason Kent, Ward 1. I wanted to talk a little bit about the safety cameras and the speed cameras. So first of all, I understand and respect the needs of public safety, and I fully support speed cameras. I think they do a job. I think they do a clear and obvious job, and I think they're effective. I think what's concerning is that we have a number of flock safety cameras installed in the city, and it is really easy to confuse them with speed cameras. I think in some of the literature on the city's website, it's not clear what they actually do, what they're capable of. So just so we're really clear. Flock markets itself as a public safety company, but they've installed over 80,000 cameras nationwide in cities like ours, and they sell a subscription service to public safety departments to be able to access the data that these cameras collect. And with this data, you're given enough cameras in a town, you were effectively able to track someone anywhere they go for the last 30 days. And I think a lot of people would argue that that level of tracking detail would normally require a warrant. Flock being a private company, they can just sell that data basically directly to public safety. Just to highlight, they're really a data broker, right? They operate on gathering as much data as possible and then turning it into something valuable, right? Data is the most valuable modern resource, which is extracted from us by means often hidden to us in order to influence our behavior. So think Facebook, Google. 98% of Facebook's revenue recently, ads. 80% of Google's revenue, ads. That's because advertisers know they can hyper-target consumers based on the amount of data that those companies can collect on those consumers, right? So with a system like Flock, you really have to ask not just what does it do today, but what will it be able to do? So right now, even the Longmont transparency portal for Flock will say it doesn't do facial recognition, right? Flock's own marketing materials will say that they have products that do facial recognition. So it's really just a matter of time until that capability is, upsold, made available. They've also filed patents for identifying individuals by height, weight, race, accessories like backpacks, gait, posture. They are a mass surveillance company. They are a data broker. They are not a public safety company. So when we're talking about cameras, I just want to make sure we are all clear on the distinction between speed cameras and Flock safety cameras. Thank you for your time.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak during public invited to be heard? Okay, we will close public invited to be heard. We will move on to information items, and we will move on to the speed traffic cameras.
If you could
Yes, please.
sit or stand to you. Okay, Jim out.
I can stand, Jim, so you can sit. You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Relax. If I can fit, sorry. All right. It's my wide hips. I apologize. So I'm here just to provide an update on the public safety, and it's not necessarily a public safety initiative, it's a citywide initiative for the speed cameras. So as of right now, we have 3 devices that we're currently using. We have 2 mobile speed trailers. They're 2-wheeled trailers that are about 5 by 5, which have a radar encompassed and camera encompassed all in one box that sits on a mast arm. So those are our 2 mobile trailers. And then we have a handheld device, which is labeled by the company as a Dragon camera. And it's essentially a handheld LiDAR unit with a mobile or a tablet attached to it that does all the processing information of the photographs that it takes and the speed that it calculates. So since the program has been issuing violations, we've issued 2,784 violations. Those are all go through a 2-part approval process. So the first approval process goes through the company, through Census Gatso, and then after they approve it based on their criteria to constitute as a violation, that it gets put into our public safety queue through a program called Zillium. That's where it gets another level of approval from somebody in our public safety building, and then it gets processed by the company if it reaches that second level of approval. So as of right now, since July, we've got a 62% pay rate. So it's not quite as high as some of our other entities that are around us or other cities around us. They're closer to around the 75%. So we're working on some things to get that up, essentially, so we can hold the people that are violating the speeds on these roads held accountable. What we have seen in the locations that we have put it since September, I'm sorry, the report that I'm reissuing is September and October, that we have seen a 2% decrease in speed. So it is having somewhat of an effect on the roadways that we're placing it on. And I think one of the most important things that this report shows from our vendor is that it's still less than 1%, 1% violator rate. So out of all the vehicles that pass by the cameras, it's still showing less than a 1% violation rate. Is there any questions?
So 62% pay rate. What are your plans to get that to go up, and what tools do we have in our toolbox to
Yeah,
hold people
so
accountable?
yeah, there was talks, and I'm still waiting on a final report. It has to go through 2 levels of service before it reaches the public safety department for a 3rd level service, which is essentially an officer would go out to the registered owner address and provide them the violation. That would be our 3rd service. The prior chief with our department really didn't want to go down the route of collections, but that's also an option that we're considering with BC Services. So.
And then for the 2% reduction, what are we seeing as standards for other municipalities that are also using this? Are we in line with that, or are we higher or lower?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that, but I can find that out. I know Boulder has been using photo enforcement for probably decades, I think, or at least a decade. I know they have really good data and really good information. So again, their camera amount and population is obviously substantially different than ours, but it'd at least be able to provide us some comparable information, or to see what their percentage drop is as far as violations. So I can get that information.
Great, thank you. And speaking of data, where does the data live?
Yeah, so the data lives with us and sits at Scotso, so they process it and then it comes down to us. Specifically, the license plate information, they get that through their DMV portal that they have. That gets entered into the citation by them, not by us.
And these are not the same as the flock cameras that we're seeing as well?
They are not. They're completely different.
Are the speed cameras the same as the red light cameras?
Yes, they are. And so as of right now, we're still going through the permitting process on 2 of our intersections that we're looking at putting at the red light, or we're looking at putting the red light and the speed safety cameras. So I don't know if you guys are aware, that'd be 287 and 119, so South Main and Kim Pratt, and that'll be for east and westbound. And then 66 and Main Street, and that'll be for north and southbound. And that we're still in the permitting process with both CDOT and the city's right-of-way permitting process. Is that correct, Kyle? Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, mostly waiting on the CDOT approval first.
Okay.
Got it. And who has access to the data for these violations?
The day we do.
And the company, but do they sell the data to anybody else?
They do not. I've been insured by them after multiple conversations and conversations with my chief that they do not sell any of the data.
And what personal identification information is tied to these violations?
The only personal identifying information is the license plate or the vehicle registration, or the registered owner of the vehicle.
Great.
Thank you. I think we've been waiting a little while to hear from you. So, but just because there's comments about Flock, who is this company?
This is Census Scotso.
Okay.
It's a Canadian company, I believe.
Okay. So not related to the Flock at all.
Correct. Nope. Separate entity.
Okay. And then the 2,000, nearly 3,000 violations. Over what time period?
That is from July.
Okay.
July through October. Yeah, and it was 2,784.
Okay.
And I'm sorry if I didn't introduce myself. I'm Sergeant Colin Jessen. I'm with the police department. Sorry.
Well, I think we know you're with the police department.
Well, yeah, good call, sir.
All right.
Good call.
I think the concern from the public, I just want to verify that it's not Flock related and it's purely for transportation purposes
That's correct.
and sending out the violations. So
That's
yeah,
correct.
That's all. Thank you.
I have a couple follow-up questions. Who's responsible for installing or moving the radar and camera trailers?
That is myself and my unit, the traffic unit with public safety.
Gotcha. And then the handheld is probably with an officer.
Correct. Yeah, we use either an officer or one of our traffic investigating, which is a civilian position, but they're within my traffic unit as well.
But they're not issuing the violation to that person at that moment. It's also being mailed to them.
That's correct. Yes.
Got it. Okay. And then since we're talking about flock, who installs and maintains the flock cameras? Is it transportation or is it PD?
No, that is the police department. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Flock does their own, and I'll just speak to this. And my chief wanted to make it clear that if you guys want to hear more about Flock, there's time tomorrow at the city council meeting that they're going to present on a lot of the public safety cameras and camera initiative. And he'd encourage you guys to go to that to learn more about those entities as well.
But are we bundling all of the cameras into one bucket, or are we separating traffic violation with flock cameras, or are they all kind of bundled together?
That's a good question. I would consider them separate, but I would defer to Chief Artis on that one.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sergeant Jessen, how does the Canadian company Census Gutso, how are they compensated?
We have a monthly subscription fee for the trailer devices and the mobile unit, and then there's a portion of each violation that goes to the vendor company. So the violation is $40 for a speeding citation, and 10 of that goes to the vendor.
So they get 25% cut of the fines collected,
Y-
plus a subscription fee.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Does this company have any kind of data privacy certifications?
I believe so. I know that was some of the initial conversation when we were looking at vendors. I'm not 100% sure on that. That was something that was started by Chief Satter, and he's the one that located this vendor. But I could find that information out for you.
Thank you.
So, yep.
Thanks, Sergeant Jessen. Really appreciate the information.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Alrighty. We'll move on to B, which is Ride Longmont 1-year review.
Good evening, board. Kaylee Fallon, transportation planner on Cami Edson's team. Today is December 8th, so we are just one day short of the year anniversary of Ride Longmont. So I wanted to give you all an overview of what the first year looked like in terms of data, kind of some of the challenges we've faced, some of the successes, and then kind of what we're thinking about moving forward. So let's get into it. So I know you all are familiar with the program, but just wanted to do a refresh and level set, make sure we're all on the same page. So this program, Ride Longmont, started because the city was able to secure funding from the RTD partnership program through the 2023 call for projects. So we were awarded just over $1 million from that call for projects. Once we were awarded that grant funding, we did release a request for proposal or RFP out to the industry, and then we contracted with the service provider via transportation. After that, the service officially launched on December 9th of 2024. We framed the first 3 years as a pilot program as we're still trying to figure out, what the service can do, where people are taking it to, looking at all that data. So looking at the first 3 years as really a pilot phase. And then we did get additional funding. So we had additional federal funding that was allocated to the program in 2024 that kicks in 2026. And then we were able to secure a second round of RTD partnership funding this year. So this is an overview of the grant funding breakdown. So like I said, that first round of RTD partnership program dollars, that was 1.1 million, kicked in the summer of 2024 and goes through 2027. The CDS is that congressionally designated spending. That is the federal funding I mentioned. That is $1 million that kicks in 2026 through 2028. And then the second round of RTD partnership funding, we were able to secure 1.4 million. That kicks in 2026 and goes through 2029. So this is a kind of nice graphic that shows you how the service is being funded and when those dollars kind of kick in. So before the service launched and kind of during the initial few months of service, we did do quite a bit of community outreach. We did distribute informational brochures, posters, and digital assets. And digital assets meaning information via email banners, and pictures via email. And this is just a list of places that myself and my previous transportation planning manager, Phil Greenwald, had reached out to really help kind of get the word out to our community. I wanted to make sure that we were focusing on those community organizations that help our most vulnerable users. And so, reaching out to the Boulder County Mobility for All folks, reaching out to Boulder County Rainbow Elders, reaching out to our senior living facilities. I personally went into a few senior living facilities and gave step-by-step presentations on how to use the service, how to download the app, how to use the service without the app. We also reached out to the Longmont Housing Authority, as well as the Civic Center, Museum, and the Senior Center. And I regularly drop off pamphlets to the Senior Center to this day. So just wanted to do a recap on the kind of community outreach that we did when we first launched the service in order to get the word out about Ride Longmont. And then these are just snippets of the social media posters or social media pictures, I should say. So we did both English pictures as well as Spanish pictures. These aren't all of what we had, but just kind of a quick snapshot of the types of social media posts that we put out there. And then these were, like I said, bilingual, so also in Spanish. Okay, so getting into the data, and this is a lot of data, but I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. But for the 1 year snapshot, and this is data up until yesterday, so it is not exactly 1 year, it's 2 days short, but relatively, we've had over 70,000 completed rides in the first year. That is averaging about 5,000 to 6,000 rides per month, and then that breaks down further to about 150 to 250 rides a day. For our service operations, so over that first year, we had a total of 115,907 ride requests. So that is anytime someone asks to book a ride in the app or calls the call center and makes a request. Out of those 115,900 and odd ride requests, the service was able to fulfill 102,564. So that was the amount of times that a ride was available to pick someone up. And that's what we call a met demand. So that met demand rate is 88.5%. Out of those 115,000 ride requests, we had 70,403 completed rides. So someone might open up the app and request a ride to work and see that ride, for whatever reason, just doesn't work out for them, and they might cancel the ride. So that's why there's a significant difference between completed rides and rides available. The completed rides is someone, books that ride or looks at that ride and says, yes, this works for me, I'm going to complete the ride. So our completed ride rates is 60.7%. For rider growth, we had over 9,000 accounts created. And of those 9,000 accounts, we had 1,632 riders complete 5 or more bookings. I really like to highlight this number for the 5 or more bookings because I think it really shows that those riders see value in the service and the service works really well for them, and they've continued to take that service. And then we do have a 4.9 out of 5 stars for the average ride rating. For rider experience, again, please keep in mind that these are the averages over the 1 year, but the average wait time, so the time it took for someone to get into the vehicle from when they booked the ride, whether it was on the app or through the call center, was 18.5 minutes. Again, average time, I know there's been challenges with the wait times over the years, but it does average out to our goal of under 20 minutes. The average ride time, so the amount of time that one person spends in the vehicle, was a little over 13 minutes. And the average ride distance has been 2.5 miles. So for the general public, this is what we call corner-to-corner service. So that means that the average person does have to walk or roll to the nearest intersection or parking lot. And so for that, the average pickup walking distance was 305 feet, which is about the size of a football field at 300 feet. And then the average drop-off walking distance was in that ballpark of 262 feet. For folks with disabilities or seniors, the drivers are instructed to pick them up and drop them off as close to their origin and destination as possible. So they would not have to walk or roll those distances, which is why I caveated that with the general public. For travel distance, there has been 196,640 miles traveled with riders on board. There is approximately, we're seeing about 100 rides to the mobility hub out on 119 and I-25 per month. And then that number gets cut in half for the number of rides back from the mobility hub to Longmont. But I think that really highlights that folks are using the service to get to that mobility hub and make those greater connections to busting up to Fort Collins, down to Denver. So really want to highlight that this is a key service in connecting folks to those other regional and statewide services. So for the for the top origins, sorry, it's a little bit hard to read here, but here are the top 10 origins from December 2024 through the end of November. So this doesn't take into account rides that have happened this month. But the top origins, so where people are asking to be picked up, the number one destination is the downtown Longmont area, and that's just kind of been aggregated into these dots you'll see in the center where it says Longmont. The second top destination was the Horizon Park Shopping Center at 21st and Main. And then it just kind of goes down the list. I won't read off all of them, but they are, shopping centers, medical centers, highlighting number 5. That's the Burlington Medical Center there. King Soopers, the Village at Peaks, Target, Walgreens. So this does kind of show that people are asking to be picked up in areas that are, providing essential services, whether that's groceries, whether it's medical, and then downtown is just that commerce hub. For the top 10 destinations, so this is where people have asked to be taken to. Again, the downtown Longmont area aggregated is the top destination, and really similar, again, the Walmart, the Horizon Park Shopping Center at 21st and Main, King Soopers, the Burlington Medical Center. So it's essentially a really similar list, just in a different order. Village at the Peaks again, Walgreens, and then some businesses off of Miller Drive near Flagstaff Academy, indicating that, folks are probably taking it to work. So I think this kind of really shows, again, that this is providing essential services or connecting folks to essential services. I will say just the caveat to this, because it is that corner-to-corner model, if someone does take it and they want to either be picked up at their place of residence or dropped off at their place of residence, that may be counted towards, a Walmart or Horizon Park shopping center if they live nearby there. It's aggregating it in a small area, but for the most part, it does show that folks are taking it to connect to those essential services. And then this is just a heat map of those destinations, again, from December 2024 through the end of last month. So you'll see that there are pockets, especially up 287. So again, that downtown Longmont area. And then as you go north, around 66 there. And then if you look kind of to the west, on 119, there's that hot spot there, kind of where Village at the Peaks is, commerce hubs there. So, but it also does show that there's quite a bit of activity just spread throughout the city. So I really think that it shows how needed this service is and how it fills those gaps in our existing fixed route transit. And then you'll see kind of out to the east there is the 119 and I-25 mobility hub, and it is a pretty medium-sized heat dot there. So a good picture of what the service has looked like for the past year. These are just some quotes from our riders that they've left feedback. So the first person was really excited that they'll, never have to miss the bus again and wait in the cold for another 30 to 60 minutes for the next one. So I think that really highlights how, this person is able to use this in tandem with our fixed route service. The second bullet point, talks about how the closest bus stop to their house is a 20-minute walk and they have an injury. And so, using this service, they're able to get closer to the bus stop and be dropped off there. So again, connecting it to our fixed route transit. And then this third bullet point there is just talking about how their experience was really, really great and they had a nice driver. So overall, the service has been really successful. These are some key performance indicators that our operator via transportation uses in order to kind of benchmark the service. And so something I want to highlight is the 2 green boxes are where our service is excelling. So in terms of productivity, we are at what they are calculating as a 3.9, which is rides per revenue hour. And the average, or their best practice, I should say, is anything over 3.5. And then Colorado State average, which is looking at the other services, other microtransit services that Via Transportation runs within the state, is 2.7. So we are well above the Colorado State average in productivity and above their best practice productivity there. We are also above their best practice for capture rate. So how they calculate that is the hourly ridership per pop plus job. We're at a 1.1 and their best practice is 1. Where there is room for improvement is our met demand. So like I talked about earlier, we had a total of 115,000 or over 115,000 ride requests, and we were able to meet 102,000 of those requests, which puts us at the 88% met demand. Their best practice is to meet 90% of demand. So we are just below that. What is challenging, or what is a factor in not being able to get to that 90%, is if you look at that first line there, we do have a larger zone in terms of square miles than their best practice.
Kaylee, can I interrupt for just a second so we can welcome in co-chair? Good evening.
Perfect. So something that I think factors into why we're a little bit under that 90% met demand is if you look at that first line there, our zone size, we're at 33 square miles. The vendor or the operator's best practice is to be under 20 square miles for efficiency. And so we just have a larger service area, and especially going out to the mobility hub, it does make the service a little less efficient. That's not to say that it's a bad thing. I think connecting folks to regional bus service is a great thing. And so I think in terms of, city staff perspective, or my perspective on this, is that, we're willing to take a little bit less of a percent demand to be able to serve a larger zone size there. And then, looking into the future, how can we expand our fleet to maybe get that met demand up? But for the moment, pretty happy with the fact that we're pretty close to 90%, and we're able to still serve a pretty large zone size. And that factors into why we have a little bit of a larger average trip distance as well. Their best practice is below 2 miles. We're at 2.5 because we have a larger zone size. So our key takeaways from this first year of the service is that there is a really high demand for the service from the community, which is great. In some ways it's a victim of its own success, but we have seen some challenges with increased wait times that have been less than ideal due to the high demand, and we are still, experiencing some longer wait times at peak demand. So when this first came to our attention, we did address this by increasing our vehicle service hours in our contract with Via Transportation. And since then, we have been able to make sure that those wait times have decreased. But because there is, again, such high demand, there are times of the day and times of the week where those wait times are over our goal of 20 minutes. And so we did also increase our vehicle service hours and funding requests from RTD in our second round of that partnership program grant. So as I mentioned, we got $1.1 million in the first round. We did go ahead and increase our ask, and we were awarded $1.4 million for that second round, reflecting the fact that we do know there's high demand from the community, and we would love to be able to expand our service, whether that's adding another vehicle to the fleet or expanding hours of the day in operation. But it does cost money. So that is something we're aware of, we absolutely want to do, and something that we're looking at being able to do. Anecdotally, people or members of the community would like to see increased hours of the day. I did receive an email this week from a community member who suggested that Ride Longmont, go past 8 p.m. on the weekdays. And so that's, again, something that we would love to be able to do in the future. And like I said, there is that opportunity to increase our met demand, but there are challenges due to our larger service area. So with all this, we are definitely going to continue to monitor this data and our KPIs, working with Via Transportation on any issues that arise, monitor our community feedback, and pursue those additional funding opportunities that may allow for future expansion, like I said, of the fleet, the number of vehicles that we have, or the hours of operation. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
I just want to say that this is it's a great service, but we're going to start digging into some questions. How much does the contract cost Longmont?
Yeah, so right now we are looking at anywhere from like about $100,000 to $130,000 a month, just depending on the month and how busy. I will say, like, when school is in session, that does affect like how busy the service gets and how much it costs. So that is averaging out to be a little bit more than $1 million a year.
And is the cost to Longmont, not the total cost of the service, like after accounting for grants?
No, so that's the total cost of the service, is about $1 million a year. I would say right now we're probably running closer to like 1.5 million a year. And as we get closer to 2030, it increases because we have in our contract with Via Transportation, the per hour vehicle rate increases. So right now we're paying about $66 per hour per vehicle. That goes up to, I believe, about $69 or $70 per hour in 2029, 2028. Sorry, I don't have it memorized. But either way, that increases, so then the total cost increases. But yeah, right now we're sitting at about $1.4 million a year.
And so does Via Transportation get the fares, or does Longmont get the fares?
Yeah, so Longmont gets the fares. We have the fare box revenue, and it just gets deducted from our total invoice. I will say the fare box revenue is less than 10% of the total monthly cost. So we're getting maybe $5,000 to $7,000, maybe $8,000 a month. So it is not nothing, but it is a pretty low portion of the total invoice.
All right. Thank you very much.
Fantastic presentation, Kaylee. Nice work. Can you go back to the heat map? Yes, this one. So with this data, does RTD also have access to this data?
So RTD does not have direct access to this data. I think I know where you're going with it, but I'll let you continue.
How can we share this data with RTD? Because what I'm looking at, and then also what we have is we have where they're going, where they're getting picked up, what times they're using the service. Can we give this data to RTD to say, hey, how about we look at different bus routes to serve this as, you know, supplement, have the bus routes and then have Ride Longmont as the supplemental?
I saw you grab the mic, so you go ahead.
Yeah, so as Cami Hansen, just as Kaylee stated, this is a 3-year pilot, so that's completely the intention of the pilot is to use the Ride Longmont data to help supplement the conversations with RTD about where should future fixed routes go. So one of the things that Kaylee and I have been looking at too is to see, especially when we look at the origin maps, is where in the community are people not picking up the service yet. So I think it's still being that we just completed our first year. It's great data for the first year. It's probably too early to really hone in on where do those fixed routes need to be for sure, because we want to see if there's concerted efforts that we need to make in different parts of the community to make sure that they know the service is available, see if we can work on some uptake there as well. And then, of course, ongoing look at this and keep having these conversations with RTD. The next time we're having the RTD conversation about potential future routes is this spring, 2026.
Will you share this with us so I can have it in my back pocket? Great.
And can I just address one thing that Board Member McInerney brought up earlier about the service to the airport? City Council also asked the exact same question. This conversation has been addressed with Ride Longmont or Via Transportation, Inc. This is not a service that they're interested in providing because their type of service is not meant to be regional. It's really meant to stay local. So they're not set up to do that. And so our response to City Council, which I'll share with you too, is we're definitely interested in looking at other service providers who might be interested to the airport, but Ride Longmont or Via Transportation, Inc. has already declined. They're not interested in having that conversation with us. So
great. Thank
logical thought, we get why people are asking, but it's been asked and they have declined.
Can you go back to the slide for the destinations on the table? So what's interesting, this is not what I expected the data to be, but the data is the data. What is interesting is it looks like it's going to a lot of shopping, like grocery stores, and also some higher density apartment complexes. So maybe we can help those folks get to grocery shopping. My follow-up question is, how much space can a passenger bring with them? Like, can they bring a whole shopping cart worth full of stuff with them? Is there any limitations?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think there's limitations. I have asked this question, especially about like suitcases and large backpacks, and they told me there is really no restriction. With that being said, it's not like they're able to put all their groceries on the back seat and like take up 3 seats. With that, I'm guessing people are maybe taking a couple of bags, but yeah, you can take bags as long as it's not taking away from a passenger.
Great. And my last question before I give the mic up, for the approximate $1.1 million that we had from RTD monies, did they take something away for that money that they gave us for this, or was that new monies?
Sorry, did they take something away?
So for that first round, so for the 1.15, did they take service away from somewhere else in Longmont to give us that money, or is that?
No, so the RTD partnership program is a completely like new separate grant, so not related to fixed route transit or what we pay for fixed route. So no, they did not.
Thank you.
RTD is going to start something called the Comprehensive Operational Analysis soon. It's basically a whole bus network redesign. Have we considered sharing this preliminary data with them ahead of that process?
Yeah, so what I mentioned, those conversations with RTD are really going to happen in the spring. That's the COA you just mentioned. So yes.
All right. Thank you, Kaylee. Everyone kind of asked the questions I wanted to, but I have one question: is there an average, like when it's most popular during certain time periods?
Yeah, so that kind of fluctuates depending on like the time of year and season. I will say on average, what we're seeing is that there's like a spike in that early morning commute time around like 7 or 8 a.m. And then again between like 3 and 4 p.m. When school is in session, I think that afternoon spike gets a little bit earlier, like 2 to 3 p.m. And then over the summer, we did have spikes in like midday, like lunchtime. But again, it was summer, school is out, maybe folks were taking it at midday. But in general, yeah, kind of follows that commute pattern, early morning and mid-afternoon.
Okay, thank you. That was kind of the only question for Ride Longmont. But I will mention, when you guys have a meeting with RTD, I've been on this board for 3.5 years now, and they have talked about a route to the East Hospital every year, and it's never happened. So really push them that, you know, they do need to follow through.
Kaylee, I also want to thank you for a very comprehensive report. And I do have a few questions. What's the longest wait time that's been accepted by a rider?
That is a great question, and I do not know the answer to that.
Okay.
But happy to look into that.
Now, two of your statistics that caught my eye are the Met demand rate of 88.5%, which seems pretty good, but the rider acceptance rate is 78.3%. Did I get that right?
I don't know that I covered rider acceptance rate. We covered Met demand, and let me pull up.
Oh, I guess I took it out of the packet. It's included in the report.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I
So,
missed that. I didn't put that in the.
My question is, how can the Met demand rate be higher than the rider acceptance rate? So let's say a potential rider goes on the app and finds out that a ride to their destination is going to involve a 35-minute wait, let's say. And so they bail out at that point. Does that count as meeting demand, or is that neutral for meeting demand?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I should have clarified this. So Met demand is when the service is able to provide that ride regardless if the rider decides to take the ride or not. So there are times during those peak demand hours where you'll get a notification that says, unfortunately, the service is full or at capacity and we're not able to provide a ride at this time. Please try public transportation options. So that is what's factoring into the Met demand. So it does not factor in whether or not someone decides to actually take a ride and complete a ride.
Okay, thanks very much.
I'm sorry, I missed the presentation. I was in the other room talking about transportation again. So I just have one question, I guess. Well, actually I have two questions. You've already talked about it, I don't know. I wasn't here, I'm sorry. Have you been tracking how many bikes have been attached to vehicles?
We have not, no, and that's a great question. It's probably in the data if they ask for it in the app, because you can put on the add-on like you need a bike, but we have not been tracking it consistently, no.
Okay. And my other question is so if someone is already riding and then additional pickups are added as they're riding, is that something you've been tracking, like the time as someone is moving in the vehicle, but then the time that they get to their destination increases because there's more additional pickups? And I'm sorry if you already talked about that.
No, so that's just the nature of the service. The service is a shared ride, so it is expected that you would be picking up other folks along your ride. It's not a private ride. We do track the average ride time. So the average over the first year of service, a person has spent in the vehicle is just over 13 minutes. With that being said, the caveat here is that this is the average and there are, peak demand times where that might be higher, but it does average out to about 13 minutes.
Okay. I'm just wondering, comparing the estimated, because when someone is calling a ride, it tells you estimated time of arrival. And how is that time comparing to the actual time of arrival, based on those additional pickups? Of course, they're expected, but how is that time? Is it going to be the same time or is it often very different?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we're tracking the difference between the ETA and the actual time. I have not heard from the community that that's an issue, or I haven't, had people reach out and say that they're really struggling with that frequently. But I'm happy to go back into the data or ask via transportation if that's an issue that they're seeing. I know sometimes if the vehicles get stuck in traffic, or again, if it's, those rush hour times, that might happen. But for the most part, I think the ETA in the app is pretty accurate.
Okay, that was not my experience, but I'm sure, hopefully it's improved for some people, but I think being able to estimate the time and getting there at the time you're expecting, especially if you're going to work or school, and being able to rely on those estimated times is really important. So having that comparison, I think, would be important.
I could be wrong, Kaylee, too, but I think in the app, it does update the estimate from the original time you're booking to if there is another rider along the way, if you're tracking it, it does update. And
but what about
it can at least give you that sort of real-time feedback of,
yeah.
Oh, we said 15 minutes, but now it's 20.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have the choice to cancel or not. So I think at least you get that real-time live update-ish, live-ish update. Still not perfect compared to, I see what you're saying, what was the original quote versus what was the real.
Yes.
But at least riders are getting the change to decide if it's still a valid ride for them or not.
But if they're already in the vehicle and then there's additional pickups.
That's different, yeah. Versus if you're waiting for it still.
Once you're already in the vehicle, it's not like you're going to jump out and, okay, well, I've changed my mind.
Correct, yeah. Different situation versus out versus in,
Yeah, I was just wondering. Anyway, sorry if I
good
missed the
question,
presentation.
yeah.
Now that we have a year's worth of data, would we be able to put some additional estimates where it gives a range, since we probably have enough data to say hey, this person's getting picked up here, they're going there. We normally see this amount of pickups along that route. Would we be able to do some intelligence in the future to say hey, best case scenario, you'll get to your destination at 1:00. Worst case scenario, it'll get to you at 1:20.
Yeah, I think that's something we can certainly bring up to Via Transportation. They are the folks that own and operate the service and develop the app. So we don't have control over, I'm not in there on the back end coding the app or anything like that. But definitely something I can absolutely take to Via Transportation to see if that's within their wheelhouse and something that they're able to do.
Because would a range satisfy most folks?
I think so.
Okay.
All right, sorry, I got one more question. Because the cost is roughly $1.5 million a year, do we have an estimate of what it would take to increase service, whether that's another vehicle or expanded hours, earlier and later in the day?
Yeah, so I have an estimate from Via Transportation about adding another vehicle to the fleet. I have not asked them for a solid cost estimate on expanding hours of the day, but they did give me a cost estimate of $500,000 a year to add another vehicle.
Is
Okay.
that before the routes or is that after the routes? 500,000 just for the vehicle, and then on top of that, whatever the routes would cost?
Yeah, so that's just factoring in like hiring more drivers, operations and maintenance. It's not just like the vehicle itself costs $500,000. That's like their estimate of the city would be paying $500,000 more in vehicle revenue hours with another vehicle, if that makes sense.
Okay, but then the question for expanded hours hasn't been asked of what that would cost.
I've like vaguely talked about it, but I have not like gotten a solid number from them yet.
Okay, so maybe someday.
I think that's one thing we're talking about internally, and sort of there's a real big difference between, even on their end, adding increased service hours and guaranteed there'd be drivers for those is a very different scenario than adding a car within the existing time frame. So there's a lot of different factors that go into like which direction should we go if we're talking about expansion, because they're very different questions that need to be asked with very different factors that would, like, is it viable for them and is it viable for Longmont? Because I think the driver shortage, as we know for many of the services, is a real challenge. So all things worth considering, I guess is my point, but kind of different factors will play into what makes the most sense to do further investment in to start at least.
Because I personally would like to see us use the vehicles as much as we can before we add another vehicle. Great. Kaylee, thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
All right. And then we're going to agenda item C, which is the 2026 work plan introduction.
Yeah, this will be pretty brief, I think. This was just, I just wanted to, in the packet, there's basically a sample table at the end of kind of categories that we think we want to bring to you in January as how to organize our 2026 work plan. So we're not going to get into the weeds and details tonight, but it started to get you all thinking about how can we be most efficient in January's meeting, being that we'll be onboarding our new members and our new council person. So we'll have a lot of the meeting will be taken up with that time, but we want to make sure we get efficiently through considering what you want on the agenda for 2026. So these were just samples, not necessarily an exhaustive list, but we really want to talk to you about and think through. So Kyle's team, my team, Jim's team, we'll be looking at our project list to really say what are the projects that make the most sense to bring forward to you in 2026? What are those programs that make the most sense to talk to you about in 2026? Any policies we're considering? But one of the categories that we really wanted you to maybe do some pre-thinking about is kind of in the policy world or in the study session section. We're not going to have a ton of time to probably cover all the topics we'd all like to talk about. So bring kind of pre-thinking through which ones would be your priorities. So we can maybe make some of those quick trade-offs, trade in, trade out. We'll come with a list of recommendations. You'll see that in advance. But I wanted you to start pre-thinking about what would your priorities be. So like I said, when we have that, what would we want to swap in or swap out in January? It can be as efficient as possible. So we intend to sort of organize it with what projects, programs, policies, and then what are those topics you really want to dig into. And right now we sort of have outlined earlier this year, you had suggested maybe 2 study sessions in the year. So that's sort of the limitation we're working with is how do we build in 2 of those study sessions? And then throughout the policies, programs, and projects kind of categories, those would be spread out amongst kind of the presentation topics on any given month. So just thinking through if you can come with your ideas for policies and or study sessions you want to prioritize, we'll come more and provide you in advance kind of the project and program notes. Not that you can't come or give feedback in advance of any projects or programs you definitely want to hear about that you are aware of. But our team's going to try to do some of that narrowing as there's way more projects going on than we probably have time to cover. So which ones are you maybe most interested in that you're aware of? Feel free to send that to Kaylee and I or in advance or anyone on the team up here, and we can sort of try to factor that into our draft 2026 work plan for you. So any questions or approach or suggestions for how to maybe better approach it or be more efficient? We're just trying to think through how do we maximize our January meeting time. Sound okay?
Sounds great.
Good. Thank you all.
All right, do we have any action items? No action items. All right, so we'll move to board comments, and we'll start. No, sorry. Oh, okay. We'll start on this side and work our way over here.
I want to say thank you for coming with some very thorough presentations, lots of detail. I love to see it. And I also want to say thank you for having a very thorough packet with multiple attachments to go through ahead of time. It helps us have a better board meeting when we have more information ahead of time. Please give me more homework.
Yes, I'll second all that. Very thorough, great presentations. I do have a question just for the board, because we kind of briefly talked about is expanding minutes to 5 minutes for public invite to be heard. Is there a process that we have to do that to change bylaws, or can we just do it? Anyone know?
I'm looking at Stephanie. We might have to double check and get back to you. I think it would just be,
I'll check with the city clerk and get back with you.
Okay.
thank you, Stephanie.
So if everyone agrees, I would propose that we expand from 3 minutes to 5 minutes, considering we don't get very many people anyways.
Should we do a motion now, and if it's okay, then it goes through to the next meeting, or do we need to wait to the next meeting?
Then I move that we increase public invite to be heard to 5 minutes.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? All right. Thanks, Stephanie.
Well, I mean, I missed a large fraction of the meeting, unfortunately. The overlap of the Boulder County transit plan meeting was exactly the same time as this meeting, so I apologize for not being here for most of it, and it sounds like I missed a really good meeting, so I'm disappointed. That meeting was really interesting and helpful, and I know we're going to hear about that plan next year, so I'm not going to talk about it, but I will look forward to reading the packet and seeing the rest of the live stream on YouTube. But happy holidays, everyone, and thank you.
I'll add my thanks to staff for the quantity and quality of the information you presented tonight. Much appreciated. My final comment is really one directed to the board. One of our members of the public asked us to consider sending a resolution to council regarding speed cameras versus flock cameras. And I just wanted to remind board members about that and see if anybody had a comment on that.
Do we know what's going to be spoken about at tomorrow's city council meeting?
I'm not sure if Officer Jessen left. He left already, yeah. So he would have the most insight to that. We just know it's sort of a dedicated session to talk about flock cameras and answer the questions that public have come up with already. So we have not seen the draft of the presentation, so I don't know that we can give you much insight other than direct you to watch and listen like we are.
My recollection is that we heard tonight that the two types of cameras are completely separate and there's no data shared, and that the speed cameras don't do anything but record speeds and issue citations. So that kind of satisfies my concerns, but I wanted to ask if any other board members thought it advisable or necessary for us to make some kind of statement to city council.
One of the things that is confusing to me is it doesn't seem like the transportation staff is in charge of the implementation or the data integrity of this. It seems like it's all PD, and I don't know. Sorry.
Chair Kalkofer, please continue. I was just going to chime in when you were finished.
I don't know if it's in our purview to recommend anything that's not something that you all handle.
So Chair Kalkofer and tab members, that's correct. The transportation engineering, transportation planning, we have really nothing to do with the flock cameras. That has fall under the purview of the public safety. They have worked with Flock to obtain those and use that data. I was surprised about a month ago when I found out we actually had flock cameras. So it's been a learning experience for me, and I will be tuning in to tomorrow night's council meeting to learn more. I think what I would note also, if the board would want to take some form of action, they may want to wait to see what city council does before you initiate anything.
Jim, do you think it's likely that they're going to resolve this issue at tomorrow's meeting, or would it be continued to in a time frame that would allow us to provide input to council?
I would have no information to indicate what they may do. Understanding that tomorrow is a study session, so at study sessions, council takes no action on items. So if formal action was suggested, required, it would come back at a regular session. And more than likely, it would be sometime in January, if anything.
All right, so there's a chance that we would have a chance to reconsider this in January and still be in time to say something to council if we decided we wanted to do that.
I kind of share the same opinion as board member Kalkofer that, it's not a transportation related issue. So I don't know if we should interject as this board. But I will clarify, I think the flock contract is up for renewal for January, I believe, but I could be wrong on that unless anyone else knows. So their decision might come a little quicker.
I see.
Yeah.
All right, well, it doesn't really sound like it's our purview, so that's all I'll have to say.
Yeah, I think the most that would be appropriate for us to say is, this doesn't affect transportation. And I don't know that that's terribly worthwhile.
Do we want transportation to be in the know about something that is on our roadways, though?
I think, well, do you want to go first?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'll go after.
So we are in the loop for various technologies that PD does use for enforcement. As far as the flock cameras, we're not heavily involved in all of those. They will give us information if they want to utilize one of our traffic signal mast arms to attach those. We definitely don't prefer it. There are a few locations in the city where they are attached to our signals, but for the most part, it's our policy to have them not on the poles. As far as the mobile speed units and the red light running, we have been assisting PD for data collection for just background information before we do the enforcement, as well as part of the application from CDOT to get the Avis speed corridors approved. So we provide extra information from our roadway counters to help support their application.
And I'll just add, just as a reminder, when the ordinance or resolution was passed to be able to bring this type of technology to Longmont, you had, by Colorado law, that you had to pre-name where you would install the permanent cameras. I think we talked about this before, and it's in the packet. Yeah, just as a reminder. So Vision Zero staff, traffic engineering staff, transportation planning staff are heavily involved in identifying which corridors should be named for these service or for these resources. And as well as there's ongoing internal groups around what is happening with the data and what are we learning. While PD is in charge of where the data is going and has access, they are sharing it with the rest of us too. And there are a lot of internal conversations about what are we learning, even though it's been, for 6 months of the use of the technology.
Just to clarify, you were talking about the speed cameras
Yes,
there?
for the speed cameras.
Okay. And not
Yes,
the flock
thank you.
cam. Not the flock
Not
cameras.
the flock cameras. So so I think to Board Member Kalkoffer's point is the transportation staff as a global identifier is involved when it comes to the speed camera data. We are involved. While the data doesn't come to us, it goes to PD. We are involved with, looking at the data and talking with PD on a regular basis about how's it going, where things should be going. But some of that is named in by law ahead of time.
Great. Well, thanks to the staff. Great presentation. Really appreciate everything. I do want to pitch again Service Works for signage that is missing on some roadways. If residents want to put in a request for missing signage, Service Works, I've used it in the past and it's a great service. Very responsive. The staff does a great job. Thanks to the staff for bringing updates from what you've heard from Public Invited to be heard from previous. Really appreciate that. One of the things that I do want City Council to hear is it seems like a lot of folks are concerned about data privacy and their privacy in general. So if we can make sure that traffic safety cameras like red light and speed cameras are completely separate bucket to these flock cameras, because to me they're different and we should treat them separately. So what I'm hoping for City Council when they're talking about traffic safety, they're not bundling everything together because I think it needs to be all separate. Thank you.
Sorry, is something I meant to bring up earlier. The snow removal for this last event, it was a little subpar for a lot of the greenways, I would say. It was really, really icy, and it's still icy now. I think there was one pass through at one time, but it must have been done in the middle of the storm because there was still a significant amount of snow and ice even today. And I worry that that's going to be a safety problem, and it's especially on some of those ramps that I've talked about in the past, where some of those ramps are just pure black ice, just going straight down, and that's not accessible for anyone. So I know we've talked about snow removal in the past, and everyone knows my opinion on snow removal on some of these paths, but I would just want to bring attention that I think a better job could be done on that moving forward.
So Board Member McKee Burrows, if you could provide us those locations, to be clear, if they were on the greenways and trails, that is the responsibility of Parks and Rec. But if you can get us that information, we'll pass it on to them. Make sure that they pay special attention on some of those black ice areas. But we can get that information over to them.
Okay.
And you can email me directly or email Cami. But get us a kind of a general location areas, or as Chair Kalkoffer suggested, you could call Service Works.
What selection do you do? Because I did put in a Service Works selection for an icy patch of roadway, and there wasn't a bucket that seemed like it was the right category.
With roads is Public Works. And if you don't use Service Works, you could just email me and we'll get it addressed.
But do you select other? Because there's no like snow or ice.
I would just go with other and describe it what it is.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and I would say also on the roads, like there was large buildups around a lot of the paths. Like if anyone was having accessibility issues, there's no way they're getting through those humps of snow because it just completely blocks their way. So even along the roadways, there was a lot of snow buildup, and yeah. So anyway, just something to think about future. And I know we've talked about snow before, but anyway, thank you.
I just also have a quick comment on snow. On my ride down here, I noticed that the eastbound bike lane on 18th Avenue between Spencer and Sumner was just completely filled with a mountain of ice. And I had to take the lane on Francis south of 17th for a moment due to ice in the bike lane there as well.
Also regarding snow removal, I'm thinking back to a meeting a couple of winters ago when this issue came up related to snow removal in the downtown area, sidewalks and curb cut areas in the downtown. And we were reminded at that time that it was the responsibility of parks, but we also were told at that previous meeting that typically by the beginning of December, Parks has pretty much exhausted its budget for the year. So they just don't have resources available to do the snow removal downtown and in the greenway. So I guess my comment is maybe parks shouldn't be responsible. It shouldn't be part of their budget. I mean, we have a lot of revenue generated from the street tax, and it seems like snow removal to benefit pedestrians and bicycles would be a worthy use of some of that revenue.
So Board Member McInerney, we've been working with parks in this last snow season, including currently, to ensure that we'll cover any of their shortfalls through the end of the year. The one season where we did have shortfalls there was a time where we had a repeated number of storms. This season, everybody has plenty of money in their snow budgets because we've only really been impacted by 2 storms so far. One was so minor, we really didn't deploy. But we should have enough to get us through the rest of the year. Come January, there's a new budget, bucket of money. So what might be occurring sometimes is Parks does hire contractors to do a lot of their work, and the thoroughness and some of the quality isn't always there. It is the responsibility of the project manager to follow up on those areas and inspect. But if we know the areas, we can make sure they get done. This year, I think in the downtown in this past storm, they did a pretty good job in the downtown area. I think on the sidewalks in most of the areas they were clearing, at least in the 2 blocks I walked on Wednesday morning. So, but if you cite any areas, we'll get them taken care of.
Just to confirm, transportation has a budget item of funds that would be directed to parks in the instance of them running out of snow removal resources?
If there's so we program an operating budget for snow and ice. A portion of that is professional and contracted services. If there's funding remaining at the end of the budget year, we can transfer some of that or have parks issue a purchase order out of that account to cover their work.
I see. Thanks, Jim.
Great. And as we don't have a city council liaison, we will skip that section. Do we have any items for the upcoming agenda?
I think for January, it's going to be pretty tight with the onboarding of the new members and focusing on the 2026 scope of work setting. So we can consider others and we'll have to figure out how to hold it in, but we sort of envision it being really around those 2 items mostly. We did talk about potentially doing a presentation on like year-end updates, sort of from traffic engineering and transportation planning, like a 2025 recap, kind of 2026 look ahead, but pretty brief as a way to set up the scope of work discussion. But otherwise, we don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of room for a whole lot extra.
Okay.
But open to your ideas for consideration, especially even for February, if you've got something that you're just itching to talk about. January is going to be pretty full, though.
Great. Well, if there's no further business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition?
Thank you, board members.
So you guys still